Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bridger of Worlds podcast. I am your host, Ioannis Kokkinos. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are on YouTube watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you are on one of the podcast platforms, thank you for tuning in as well. So today I want to talk about sexual energy as a modality of healing, a psychosomatic practice, an actual practical way of utilizing this energy, this life force within our body to promote healing, to promote further spiritual awareness, and learn a little bit more about how implementing holding space during a practice such as this is very important for optimizing sexual health, optimizing spiritual health, and basically making this connection between both because they are, in fact, two sides of the same coin. So it is important that you touch base with the previous episodes, especially episodes 9 and 10, where I talk about the kundalini fire, the kundalini energy, the sexual fire that is to be raised through the spine, through the chakras, up to the crown chakra right here at the top of our head. So this is a theory that can be applied to either a solo practice or when we are intimate with a partner. This is a practice that is especially important when sexual wounding is involved, if someone, let's say, has been sexually assaulted, raped, sexually harmed in any way. And of course, this can be very beneficial for those trying to recover from porn addiction, because to be addicted to porn is to sexually wound the self, the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit. Our body is an expression of our soul. Our soul is an expression of our spirit, and our spirit is an expression of our higher mind, our higher consciousness, which I will be getting into in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. So today I will be talking more about the bottom energy centers, the bottom root chakra, specifically the root chakra, which is our first, right at the base of our spine. It is located at the perineum. And then the second sacral chakra is basically right beneath our navel area. So these two bottom chakras, these two bottom energy centers are especially to be looked after and to be given attention, really within any expression of trauma, because these energy centers develop first compared to the rest of the chakras. But because these two chakras are especially connected to our sexuality, our unconscious, our shadow, the material that is beyond our conscious awareness, it is especially important that we pay attention to these energy centers. So they are obviously located in areas of the body that are most of the time covered, right? So already by covering these areas of the body constantly is an unconscious hiding as well. Obviously, we are not to roam out and about naked. Clothing is necessary, clothing is important, but it is important to touch base with these parts of our body as well by basically witnessing them. Because every single part of our body, every single energy center, every single chakra in our body have messages for us. So if we are suffering from some type of sexual wounding, we have to work with the body because it's inside the body, it's within the body that emotions are stored. So if there are very low vibrational, very dense, very heavy emotions within the body regarding sexual wounding, this is where the emotions are. So touching base now with the two chakras, the root chakra, which I talked quite a bit about in the previous episodes, is basically the starting point of our sexual energy, of our life force, of our inner fire that is to be raised up through the rest of the chakras in the spine. So the second chakra, the sacral chakra, which is associated with the water element, is actually also our sexual center. It's our creative center and it's our emotional center. How do these three interweave? Well, to live, to be alive means to create, means to be creative. And our sexual energy is our creative energy. To be alive is also a very emotional experience. Whether we're feeling high emotions, right, like joy, excitement, gratitude, or fear, shame, guilt, we are emoting. We are constantly fluctuating between high emotion, low emotion. Emotion is energy in motion, right? So basically, when we are emoting at high levels, we are feeling higher energy. When we are emoting at lower levels, we are emoting at lower energy. We are feeling low, right? We are feeling lethargic. We are not feeling vital. We are not feeling motivated, right? So it is quite symbolic here that the sacral chakra, the emotive center, is associated with the water element, because what happens when we're feeling any type of emotion, whether it's low or high at intense levels, we get teary eyed, right? We can become tearful when we are very excited or very joyful, or when we are feeling deep gratitude. And of course, we can get teary eyed when we are feeling angry or afraid or ashamed, and so on and so forth. Water as a symbol is the flow of life, right? When we look to the seas, we look to the rivers, we look to the streams of water in our day to day, it's about the flow of life. So, this energy center is also very much responsible about how we are able to flow through life. How are we able to flow through circumstances? How are we able to let go? How are we able to surrender, right? This is the sacral chakra. And what is required during sexual union, during intimacy? Surrender. To surrender means to be in flow and to be in acceptance. It does not mean to be passive and apathetic. It is very important to make the distinction here between surrendering as a expression of the life force, because life surrenders as it wills, right? We see this in nature. We see this through the earth that is in constant state of surrender, that receives the rain, that receives the sunlight. Surrender is about receptivity. And yes, you guessed it, it is the feminine principle. The sacral chakra is known to be a feminine chakra because this is also the location of the womb. The womb is the gestation space of the fetus to transform into a baby. And what allows all of that to happen? It's water, right? The womb is where life is transformed through darkness and through water. So even though men have male bodies and have no physical womb, symbolically, the sacral chakra is where this gestation period can actually occur when it comes to transforming emotions. But this happens at more unconscious levels, right? Because if you remember what I said in the previous episodes, the solar plexus is the fire chakra, where we experience ego death and crucifixion in order to continue raising the fire up to the heart and through the rest of the chakras. The solar plexus chakra is more conscious, is more about the external environment. It is also known as a masculine chakra because it's very much about the external will, how we move through life. The sacral chakra is a area of transformation as well, but it's more hidden and more out of sight when it comes to our egoic conscious awareness. And the element here is water. So it is about moving emotions, it is about flowing. It is about learning how to move the emotions. And the only way to do this is by letting ourselves feel whatever we did not feel in the moment when we needed to feel that specific emotion. So, obviously, all of this can touch upon any form of trauma. But because these lower energy centers are especially emphasized with sexual wounding, because this is where everything begins, it is especially important to give attention to these lower energy centers when we need to heal from any form of sexual trauma. And this needs to happen with the body. We need to go into the body because the root chakra, the very first chakra of our energy centers, is our right to be here. It is the root chakra that permits us to say, hey, I have a body. I have a body. I'm a physical being, and I'm in this physical reality. That's the root chakra. So if there's already a trauma at the level of the root chakra, whether it's sexual or not, we have a very, very hard time being in our body. We have a very hard time accepting our body, and we have a very hard time connecting to our physical environment. We tend to feel very unsafe when there's an imbalance at the level of the root chakra. The second chakra is the chakra that says, hey, I have a body and I can feel with it. Hey, I have a body and I can sense with it. They're very intimately connected, but they are distinct from one another. The root chakra is not so much about feeling, right? The emotive center is the second chakra, the sacral chakra. Because as I said, this is the chakra that says, hey, I have a body and I can feel with it. I can sense with it. So if there's a emotional trauma, if there's a trauma regarding the sensual experience, this chakra too will be rendered imbalanced and cause blockages within the mind, body, soul, spirit. So obviously pain and pleasure are sensory experiences, and they are the two polarities that are connected on the same axis, right? Like pain is the opposite of pleasure. Pleasure is the opposite of pain. Normally, when we are feeling some type of pain, we want to get rid of that pain by chasing pleasure. This is how addictions develop. And then we are actually feeling pleasure at very compulsive and unhealthy levels. So it's really not about escaping the pain to feel pleasure through numbing it out or trying to feel another type of way because we don't want to feel the pain. We actually need to feel the pain. We need to go into the trauma in order for the pleasure to manifest organically. Life is pleasureful. We do need to incorporate pleasure in our life because pleasure has become incredibly tainted by modern day religion, a lot of cultures. We're not allowed to feel a lot of pleasure. Pleasure is very much about the material experience. It takes us away from God, so on and so forth. Pleasure is a part of life. Life is to be enjoyed. Life is to incorporate pleasure within our day to day. And this is the sacral chakra. So this is distinct from addiction, right? I'm not saying we need to become addicts by constantly chasing pleasure. That's not at all what I'm saying. We need to basically accept that life has both pain and pleasure, that when it's time to feel a certain painful emotion, that we feel it, because that's where the healing is, that's where the medicine is. Once that all of that subsides, pleasure comes naturally, pleasure comes organically. And what is the most probably pleasureful experience that any human being can feel? Well, that's orgasm. Orgasm is an extremely powerful sensation that we experience throughout our bodies. And orgasm is vibrational. Orgasm is vibration. What else is vibration? Everything. Everything is vibration. Creation is vibration. And when we start to make that connection between the vibrational experience of all of the cosmos, all of life, to our own vibrational experience, then that can promote deep, deep sexual healing as well as spiritual elevation. Because sexual energy is creative energy. Creative energy is spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is creative energy. Creative energy is sexual energy, right? There are three different links on the same chain. It's one energy. So to work with orgasmic energy, and this does not mean to climax. A lot of people associate orgasm with the climax, right, at the end of an intimate session. But when we are making love, when we are making eros, we are actually moving orgasmic energy throughout our bodies between each other And in these instances, we can learn how to also make this a meditative practice. We can even do this while we are doing solo work. If someone, let's say, for years and years and years, has been looking in the mirror, is a certain type of weight, feels that they are not lean enough, feels that they are not muscular enough, feels that they are not in shape enough, and for years look in the mirror and keep projecting a form of rejection, a form of denial, a form of hatred towards a certain body part or a certain area of the body, that will get stored inside the body. And that energy will not go anywhere until it is witnessed. Orgasm, orgasmic energy, because it is vibrational and because vibration is creation, basically has the potential to go into those areas of the body, to go into very unconscious parts of the psyche, and to surface the emotions. Because whether we are vibrating through orgasm, or we are vibrating through dancing, or we are vibrating through shaking our bodies, you know how we say to shake it out, or to stomp it out, or to just move the body, this promotes vibration. This promotes vibrating. And vibration is the source of creation. Science tells us this. Physics tells us this. The third Hermetic principle is nothing rests. Everything moves, everything vibrates. They knew this in the ancient civilizations. They know this now. So, to have an orgasmic experience, again, this does not mean to climax, but to actually stay with the vibrational orgasmic energy and to witness it and to hold space for it, has all the potential to heal the deepest forms of trauma inside the body. And again, you do not have to have experienced any form of sexual wounding to have this practice and to promote this practice. But it is especially important for those who have been sexually wounded to obviously rewrite and to re-establish a healthy, organic, and loving relationship with their sexuality. Because most likely, if someone's sexually wounded, they'll want to deny that part of themselves. They'll want to reject that part of themselves because that's where the trauma is. Where the trauma is, most likely, this is also where the rejection and the denial will be as well. So we need to go there. We need to go to the sexual trauma, to the sexual wound, to reestablish that inner safety, that space holding, that witnessing, that compassion, to let the emotions surface, to let the emotions rise. That's how they transform. And then we get to the pleasure. But it is especially important to note that we cannot use orgasm to negate the pain. That's not what I'm saying here. Because this is basically what porn addiction is, what sex addiction is even, right? We're avoiding the pain. We're denying the pain. We're rejecting the trauma. So we want to experience orgasm. We want to experience pleasure at compulsive levels in order to make up for that feeling. But we actually need to work with the pain first. We need to work with the trauma first, and we can harness sexual energy. We can harness orgasmic energy as a means, as a modality to not avoid that pain, but to face that pain. Because this energy, this vibrational orgasmic energy, is the life force, is the cosmic creating force of absolutely everything. And this is the energy that exists inside our body. This is why we are able to create life. This is why we come together with another human being to create a baby, to create new life. It's an energy. So when we really start to make that connection between sexuality, creation, spirituality, our whole world can change. And another thing about vibration, Dewey B. Larson, who was a famous physicist, said most likely that photons, which is light, are created from vibration. So at the level of physics, light carries frequency, light carries information, light carries consciousness. And I'm not talking just about the 7 colors on the visible spectrum of light. There's also invisible light, like gamma rays and X-rays and infrared waves, right? Light is visible as it is invisible, and light carries information. So can you imagine if we are moving orgasmic energy, and when we are experiencing orgasm and when we experience that climax, we're basically experiencing oneness. We're experiencing oneness with creation when we orgasm. So can you imagine at lower magnitudes and less intense levels, when we are working with that orgasmic energy, we can actually promote light. We can promote invisible light, frequencies, consciousness, information to further promote our healing, right? So that's definitely something to think about as well. That vibration is a source of light. Orgasm is a source of light. In Tantra, when two lovers come together to circulate the sexual energy between themselves, it's called the circle of light. So there is a connection there between light, vibration, and sexuality. And of course, all of this is to further and elevate our spirituality. When we are moving more and more towards orgasm, right? When we are in an intimate experience and we are actually reaching the climax, we are more energy. We are more energetic in nature than we are material. And it's a paradox because we're actually using our body to do this. Our body couldn't be more material. It couldn't be made more matter. But we are using our body made of matter to move further and further into a state of pure energy, orgasm, vibration, sexual energy, creative energy, spiritual energy, right? So basically, how to start working with all of this, whether we are solo or with a partner who can hold the space and wants the space held for them, is basically to do exactly that. Hold the space. It is an impulse. It is an animal instinct. It is something that takes us out of ourselves, right? When we are sexually aroused. The idea is to stay with it, is to be with it, is to witness it, is to meditate with it. And of course, you can move the body while you're meditating. Dancing can be meditative. Walking can be meditative. Cooking can be meditative. Lovemaking can be meditative. Any form of movement can be meditative. So instead of going fully into it unconsciously and it taking us with it, it is a part of us and it is not to control us. And the only way to master it, and only way to harness it in any way, shape, or form is to learn how to hold space for it. And this is exceptionally healing for those who have been sexually wounded, because these lower energy centers, the root chakra, the sacral chakra, are the actual areas where the wounding has occurred, right? And again, this is also very relevant to porn addiction. When we are watching porn and we are so immersed in that dynamic and what's going on behind the screen, that takes us out of our body. We are not at all in our body when we are watching porn. And it's funny to say that, right? Because we are feeling very aroused, and whether we are actually self-pleasuring or not, we are very much disconnecting and disassociating, first of all, from our heart, which is the bridge between all of the chakras inside the human body. But because we are mostly here, right? We're watching a screen. We are here. We're right here. It's very much a cerebral experience. So it does start to disconnect us from our lower centers, our heart, and the rest of our body. I'll get into that in other episodes. I will leave it here. I do feel like this is complete. I hope that served you in any way, shape, or form. This is very much connected to my personal healing journey because of my experience with porn addiction. So if you do have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Threads, I'm on Facebook, Bridger of Worlds, my full name. If you're on YouTube watching, please hit that like, subscribe button. I so do greatly appreciate that. If you feel like there is someone that needs this information, please go ahead and share this video. If you're on one of the podcast platforms, thank you for tuning in as well. So I will be back next week. And as always, please remember that you are the medicine and I am just the messenger. Thank you very much.